All right, so in this lesson, we are going to talk about subtracting integers. And remember that an integer is a whole number, and it's either positive or negative, but it does include 0. Now, I'm going to caution you that you should not watch this lesson unless you have already done adding integers, because you won't be able to figure out subtracting integers if you haven't done adding. So let's go ahead and get started. So, the nice thing about subtracting integers is that there's only one rule. It doesn't matter if it's the same sign or a different sign, there's only one rule. And that rule is called keep, change, change. And we make this little tic-tac-toe board to help us out with it. It's not something that you have to use, but it is a really nice tool to help you stay organized. So I drew a tic-tac-toe board here. My problem was -1 minus -7. Okay, and it's written just like that. And then in the center, I'm going to put KCC for keep, change, change. So I go vertically down the tic-tac-toe. So I'm going to keep the -1. I'm going to change the minus to a plus, and I'm going to change the -7 to a +7. Now, what has happened through this tic-tac-toe board is I've created an addition problem, and now you go back to your same addition rules that we did in the last lesson, and that's how you'll be able to solve this. So I have a -1 plus a +7. Those are different signs, so I'm going to ignore the signs, subtract the two numbers. 7 minus 1 is 6. The bigger number in this case is 7. It's positive, and so my 6 is also positive, and that will be my final answer. So it's nice because there's one rule. So let's go ahead and try a couple of examples here. I'm going to make my tic-tac-toe board. Not very good at straight lines. So I'm going to put my problem into the first line. 6 minus +8. And here I'm going to do keep, change, change. So I keep my 6, I change my minus to a plus, and I change my +8 to a -8. Now, I have different signs, +6 and a -8. I'm going to ignore the signs, subtract the two numbers. 8 minus 6 is 2. In this case, the bigger number is 8, and so my answer will be negative, just like that, 8, and so the answer is -2. All right, let's try another one right here. I'm going to set up my tic-tac-toe board. All right, so in the first line, I'm going to input my problem, 4 minus 9. Across the center row, I'm going to put keep, change, change, or KCC, and now I'm going to go vertically to solve. Keep the 4, change the minus to a plus, change the +9 to a -9. Now we solve. There's two different signs, and so I'm going to ignore the signs and subtract the two numbers. 9 minus 4 is 5. 9 is the bigger number, so I'm going to keep that negative sign with the answer, and my answer is -5. Okay, I'm going to try my third problem here. So I'm going to input my problem into the top row. 7 minus -10. You can keep the parentheses in the tic-tac-toe board if you want. It's not necessary. It's whatever you're comfortable with. Across the center row, I'm going to put KCC, keep, change, change. I'm going to keep my 7. I'm going to change my minus to a plus, and I'm going to change my -10 to a +10. And now I have two positive numbers, so I know that I add and keep the sign. So I'm going to add 7 plus 10, which is 17, and they're both positive, and so my answer will also be positive. Okay, you go ahead and try these three examples. I will also set up my tic-tac-toe board, and I'll go through them when you're done. If you're not done, you can go ahead and pause the video, and if you are done, I'm going to go ahead and explain. So here you have 11 minus negative 1. You keep your 11, you change your minus to plus, you change your negative 1 to a positive 1. Now you have positive 11 plus positive 1. 11 plus 1 is 12. Since they're both positive, you keep the sign. Your second problem is negative 5 minus 7. You're going to keep your negative 5, change your minus to a plus, and change your positive 7 to a negative 7. Now you also have the same sign, but they're both negative. So remember, you add and keep. Add 7 plus 5, which is 12. Keep the negative sign because both numbers are negative. In the third example, you have negative 20 minus 15. You're going to keep the negative 20, change the minus to a plus, and change the positive 15 into a negative 15. Here you end up with the same sign as well, so you're going to add and keep. 20 plus 15 is 35, negative, and this one's negative, and so your answer will also be negative. All right, go ahead and try these three and just watch out for your absolute value bars. I'm going to work them out and then I will explain them. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go through these examples with you. If you're not done, you can feel free to pause the video. So here I have negative 12 minus negative 2. You'll see here how they use parentheses when they're writing out the problem. This is something you'll want to consider so that your two negatives don't get mixed up and form one big minus sign. You're going to keep the negative 12, change the minus to a plus, and change the negative 2 to a positive 2. So you're going to end up with two different signs, a negative and a positive. Ignore the signs, subtract the two numbers. 12 minus 2 is 10, and then you keep the sign of the bigger number, which would be the negative from the 12. All right, number 8 and 9 have absolute value bars, which should not scare you. The easiest way to do this is to solve the absolute value before you put it in the tic-tac-toe. And so the absolute value of negative 29 is 29. So I put it in as 19 minus 29. I keep the 19, change the minus to a plus, and change the positive 29 to a negative 29. I end up with two different signs, a positive and a negative. Ignore the signs, subtract the two numbers. 29 minus 19 is 10. 29 is definitely the bigger number, and so I keep the negative sign with my answer. Over here, you'll notice some absolute value bars as well. Solve them before you put them in the tic-tac-toe. The absolute value of negative 10 is 10, and then the absolute value of 7 is 7. Now you might have seen 10 minus 7 and thought, oh, well the answer is 3. And that's fine, you can definitely solve it like that. But I do want to show you that even with problems that you're used to all the way dating back to kindergarten, the tic-tac-toe will still work. I keep the 10, change the minus to a plus, change the positive 7 to a negative 7. I have two different signs, and so I'm going to ignore the signs, subtract the two numbers. 10 minus 7 is 3. 10 is the bigger number, and so my answer will remain positive. All right, so we're going to have some fun with variables yet again, and remember that these are called variables. And that is because their value can change if I decide to change them. So remember that the middle column is for when we actually substitute the numbers in for the letters. What you want to be extremely cognizant of is making sure that when you put -10 or 7 or -8 in for a number that it goes into parentheses. When we're dealing with minus signs and negative signs everywhere, it's so easy for them just to blend in together. So here I'm going to have -10 minus, and then x is also -10. Okay, I'm going to do a quick and tiny tic-tac-toe here. I should have left myself more room. So I'm going to do keep, change, change. We're going to keep the -10, change the minus to a plus, and then change the -10 to a +10. I have different signs, so I'm going to ignore the signs, subtract the two numbers. 10 minus 10 is 0, and 0 is neither positive or negative. So let's go ahead and move on here. So here I have z, which is -8 minus 5. And I'm going to set up my little tic-tac-toe board here. I'm not doing a very good job of keeping straight lines. So I'm going to have keep, change, change. I'm going to keep my -8. I'm going to change my minus to a plus and change my +5 to a -5. Now I have the same sign, so I'm going to add and keep. 8 plus 5 is going to be 13. My sign for both of them is negative, and so that one will also be negative. All right, here I have y minus 17, and so I have 7 minus 17. And so I'm going to set up my tic-tac-toe board, put my keep, change, change. Now I'm going to keep my 7, change my minus to a plus, change my +17 to a -17. Here I have two different signs, so I'm going to ignore the signs, subtract the two numbers. 17 minus 7 is 10. My bigger number is 17, it's negative, and so my answer will also be negative. And so now here we have a situation with multiple letters, and so we want to make sure we're following order of operations. So, what is x? I forget. Okay, so we're going to have -10 plus -8 plus, what's y? 7. Okay, now I hope you caught on and you saw that this is an addition problem. I threw this in there to try and get your brain to recognize the difference when I give you addition or subtraction. So we're going to solve these two first. So -10 plus -8, same sign. So we're going to add and keep. 10 plus 8 is 18. Keep the negative sign and bring the rest of the problem down. -18 plus 7. Now I have a different sign, so I'm going to ignore the signs and subtract the two numbers. 18 minus 7 is 11. 18 is definitely the larger number. It's negative, and so my answer will also be negative. Now, here I do have all subtraction between the letters. So here I have x, which is -10, minus y, which is 7, minus z, which is -8. And I'm going to need a little bit more room, so I'm going to scoot down just a little bit. So I'm going to solve these two guys first, and let's see if I can do a little tic-tac-toe in here. Awesome. So we're going to do keep, change, change. So I'm going to keep the -10, keep the keep the -10, change the minus to a plus, and change the +7 to a -7. And what that's going to give me is two negatives, so I'm going to add and keep. And so 10 plus 7 is 17, and they're both negative, so I'm going to add the negative in there. And I'm going to bring down the rest of the problem. Oops. Alright, and now I'm going to kind of move down here so I have some room. So I'm going to set up my tic-tac-toe. Here I have -17 minus -8. So I'm going to do keep, change, change. Keep the -17, change the minus to a plus, change the -8 to a +8. I have different signs, and so I'm going to ignore the signs, subtract the two numbers. 17 minus 8 is 9. 17 is the larger number, it is negative, and I'm going to keep that negative sign. And so my answer over here is negative 9. Okay. Now over here I have some absolute values. And so I'm going to move over here in red so I have some room to work it out. So the absolute value, let's plug it in here. Okay, so y is 7. So we have the absolute value of 7 minus the absolute value of negative 10. And so let me put it in my tic-tac-toe board. So the absolute value of 7 is 7 minus the absolute value of negative 10 is 10. And so now we're going to solve. Keep the 7, change the minus to a plus, change the positive 10 to a negative 10. I have a different sign. And so I'm going to ignore the signs, subtract the two numbers. 10 minus 7 is 3. The 10 is bigger, it is negative, and so my answer has a negative sign. And that is the end of subtracting integers. And if you have any questions, make sure you ask me in class.